Have you ever imagined getting caught in a full-blown zombie apocalypse? But for some strange reason, the zombies just ignore you? Like, you could walk right past them, and they wouldn't even flinch? That's exactly what happened to our protagonist. While the world crumbled around him, people screaming, cities burning, and zombies tearing through everything, he was completely untouched. Even when they saw him, they acted like he wasn't even there. So the big question is, why? Did he have some kind of hidden power? Some strange immunity? And if so, what would he do with it? Would he try to save humanity? Or would he go down a darker path and become something even worse than the monsters roaming the earth? Let's rewind and see where it all started. It begins deep inside a secret operating room, where two shady surgeons were running twisted experiments on live human test subjects. This wasn't your usual lab setup. This was dark, bloody, and highly illegal. They injected both subjects with a strange, glowing green liquid. The result? Instant chaos. Blood started gushing from every part of the male subject's body. Whatever that fluid was, it tore through him like acid. Within minutes, both subjects were dead. One of the surgeons had finally seen enough. Frustrated and sick of the pointless bloodshed, he decided to quit. After all those failed trials, all those lives wasted, he knew deep down this experiment was a dead end. He made it clear he was done. No more. But Shin, the second surgeon, wasn't ready to walk away. In his eyes, their subjects were already people on the verge of death. So what if they died a day earlier? If sacrificing them meant pushing humanity one step forward, then to him, it was worth it. He told his junior to leave the room, saying he'd handle the bodies. The junior didn't argue. He just left quietly. Shin, however, stood there alone in that blood-soaked room, still clinging to the belief that somewhere out there, the perfect test subject existed. Someone who could survive the experiment. Someone who could change everything. Now let's cut to the main guy in this twisted little story, Yihwan. He works at a funeral home, handling the dead for a living, alongside his buddy Jimin. Most of their days are a weird mix of goofing around and dealing with corpses. After a casual meal and a bit of banter, the two head off to the hospital to pick up some bodies. Once they arrive, Yihwan flashes his business card at the hospital counter, introducing himself as a representative from Hanwol Funeral Services. He explains they got a call earlier that morning about two patients who had passed away. Jimin rejoins him after a quick detour to the bathroom, and together they head toward the operating theater. That's where things start to get weird. Turns out, the bodies they came to claim were currently being used by some surgeons for experiments. Jimin takes one look and confirms the bodies appear to be a father and daughter duo. The report says they died in a car crash, but something doesn't sit right with Yihwan. The man's body looks wrecked, as expected from a crash, but the girl? She looks almost untouched. Not a single major injury, except for a small wound on her arm. No signs of surgery. Nothing. Jimin tells him to quit overthinking it. They weren't forensic experts. After all, they were just there to move dead people. But Yihwan couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Out of curiosity, he decides to check inside the girl's mouth. As he leans in, he suddenly jerks back with a hiss. One of her broken teeth had cut his finger. Brushing it off, they start prepping to move the bodies. The father's body goes first. But just as they turn back to the girl, Yihwan notices something that stops him cold. The wound on her arm is gone. Vanished. Like it was never there. He stares at it, stunned, and points it out to Jimin. But before they can even process what's happening, a sharp, stinging pain shoots through Yihwan's hand. He stumbles, then collapses, the pain spreading fast, too fast. Jimin panics and rushes to help. But Yihwan's condition spirals out of control. His whole body feels like it's on fire. His heart pounds like it's about to explode, and the burning heat becomes unbearable. He knows something's wrong, terribly wrong. That one little cut from the girl's tooth must have passed something into his bloodstream, something not human. As the pain overwhelms him, he finally loses consciousness, his body twitching, his friend crying beside him like a helpless kid. And in the middle of all this chaos, the girl, who was supposed to be dead, suddenly twitches. A while later, Yihwan slowly opened his eyes, his head heavy and spinning. He had no clue what the hell was going on. The first thing he noticed was the so-called dead girl, now very much alive, repeatedly banging her head against the door like some kind of possessed freak. Naturally, his heart nearly leapt out of his chest. Seeing the dead walking was bad enough, but then his eyes landed on something worse. His friend's mangled, bloody corpse lying motionless on the ground. Panic surged through him, a sick mix of fear and confusion. His hands, they were soaked in blood. For a few seconds, he just stared, horrified. Then the girl turned her head, locking eyes with him. But instead of attacking or screaming, she simply twirled around and went right back to slamming her head against the door like she was stuck in some hellish loop. Yihwan glanced back at his friend's body, then again at his own blood-stained hands. The thick, sweet scent of blood was everywhere now, crawling up his nose, spreading across his tongue. It was strangely intoxicating. The scene around him felt twisted, dreamlike. No, worse than a dream. A nightmare he couldn't wake from. Suddenly, his friend let out a groan. Yihwan's heart skipped a beat. Desperately, he rushed to his side, shaking him, trying to snap him out of it. But there was no response. His friend was alive, barely, but completely unconscious. Yihwan knew he had to move fast. Maybe, just maybe, there's still a chance to save him. Dragging him onto a stretcher, Yihwan prepared to wheel him out in search of help. The hospital, though, was a total mess. Blood smeared across the floors and walls, broken glass everywhere, and not a single soul in sight. Well, not exactly. In one corner, an old man was sobbing silently beside a lifeless girl's body. His face was drenched in sweat, the kind that came from pure dread. The look in his eyes said it all. He knew no one was coming. Whatever was happening here wasn't just inside the hospital. The world outside had already gone to hell. He cursed whatever god or devil had caused this madness. But then he noticed a twitch, a small flinch from the secretary nearby, and that was enough. The old man bolted, convinced that staying meant certain death. Grabbing a golf club, he steeled himself and rushed out, determined to escape this hellhole once and for all. Back in the operating room, Yihwan had finished strapping his unconscious friend onto the stretcher. He was ready to move, but something felt wrong. His body was heavy, his stomach twisting painfully. It was the same kind of deep, gnawing pain you'd feel when you're starving. But that didn't make sense. He'd eaten lunch before coming to the hospital. It hadn't even been that long. Gritting his teeth, he pushed the stretcher forward. As he opened the door, he nearly collided with the old man from earlier, the one clutching the golf club. Relief hit Yihwan like a wave. He immediately shouted for help, begging the old man to treat his friend. But then, like lightning, the head-banging girl zipped past Yihwan, sprinting straight toward the old man like a crazed, blood-hungry beast. Before Yihwan could even process what was happening, more zombies poured in from another room. They tackled the old man to the ground and tore into him, feasting like a pack of animals. Yihwan could only stand there, frozen in horror. Then something even worse happened. His friend, the one he had fought so hard to save, got up. Without a word, he walked straight toward the group of feeding zombies and casually sat down among them, before sinking his teeth straight into the old man's skull. Yihwan didn't wait. He ducked behind a wall, shaking like a leaf, struggling to process what the hell he just witnessed. His friend, his goofy, always smiling friend, was now part of this undead freak show. For a second, Yihwan tried to convince himself this wasn't real. Maybe he was dreaming. Yeah, that had to be it. This was just a horrible nightmare. If he could just concentrate hard enough, he'd wake up. He closed his eyes, wishing for the nightmare to end. But nothing changed. It was real. Then he noticed something strange. The date. Somehow, it was April 29th. But in his memory, it had only been the 24th. That meant he'd been unconscious for 5 whole days. Panicking, he pulled out his phone and confirmed it. April 29th. No mistake. The screen was flooded with missed calls and desperate texts from his sister, Nuna. Her last messages were full of worry, pleading with him not to go outside, begging him to stay alive. And then, right on cue, his phone died. Yihwan had no clue what the hell was going on, but that didn't mean he could just sit on his ass and wait. If he wanted to save Nuna and Minhee, he had to get the hell out of that hospital, no matter what. Meanwhile, in some random convenience store not far from the chaos, a girl sat curled up in a quiet corner, her face buried in her knees, tears running down her cheeks. Outside, the world had gone to hell. Zombies roamed the streets like bloodthirsty lunatics, and all she could do now was pray someone, anyone, would come save her. Back in the hospital, Yihwan sprinted down the dimly lit corridor, every step echoing in the silence. He barreled down the stairwell, only to lock eyes with a head-banging zombie girl mid-descent. For a second, time froze, but instinct kicked in, and he rushed past her, heart pounding, legs aching. Somehow, he made it out of the building. He was free, but barely. His body was on the brink. The exhaustion hit him like a truck, and the hunger? It was maddening. After being unconscious for days, it made sense he was starving, but damn, he could barely stand. Survival mode kicked in. Food first. Scanning his surroundings, he spotted a convenience store and didn't think twice. He stormed in and immediately started scarfing down whatever he could grab. Burgers, chips, soda, anything within reach. It wasn't even eating anymore. It was pure desperation. Only after the hunger dulled and his stomach stopped screaming did he pause. Something didn't feel right. Normally, he hated convenience store food, called it cheap garbage. And now here he was, devouring it like it was a 5-star meal. Not to mention, he hadn't even stopped to check if any of it was expired. As he sat there, the tears came, slow at first, then heavy. His thoughts drifted to his old friend, the same guy who used to obsess over zombie lore, always asking what if. And now, that same friend was one of them. Gone, just like that. While he sat, drowning in memories, a noise snapped him back. A soft shuffling, a quiet cry from the storage room nearby. Tense, he stood up and carefully approached, inching toward the door. Inside, huddled in fear, was the same girl we'd seen earlier. Her body froze as she heard someone enter, assuming the worst, that one of them had found her. Too scared to turn around, she let out a trembling cry. But when she finally did look, she didn't see a monster. She saw Yihwan, tired, filthy, and forcing the weakest smile he could manage. As he simply said he was there to help. Outside the convenience store, a lone zombie was dragging itself closer, its movements slow but unsettlingly determined. Meanwhile, inside, Yihwan was busy gathering whatever edible items he could find. He handed some over to the hungry girl, who devoured the food like she hadn't eaten in days. Probably because she hadn't. She ate so fast, it looked like she was trying to win some kind of apocalypse eating contest. Watching her inhale the food, Yihwan told her she might want to slow down unless she wanted to end up with a stomachache on top of everything else. After chugging down some water and finally feeling human again, the girl looked up at him with gratitude. She thanked him softly, saying she felt way better now. But then, curiosity got the better of her. She asked how he even got inside the store in the first place. The question caught Yihwan off guard. He fumbled for an answer, eventually telling her that he was so damn hungry, he just ran in looking for food. Not the most convincing story, considering the streets outside were crawling with mindless zombies, but it was all he had. Trying to move on, Yihwan asked if there was any way to charge his phone. The girl reminded him there were some power banks in the store. He figured he'd grab one, charge up, and head out. But the moment he moved toward the door, she suddenly begged him not to open it. There were still zombies out there. Yihwan, thinking back, assured her there hadn't been any when he came in. Of course, fate had other plans. The second he opened the door, a zombie popped up like it had been summoned by his words. The creature locked eyes on the girl and went absolutely feral, rushing toward her with bloodthirsty intent. But Yihwan was standing right in the way. Acting on pure instinct, he shoved the thing aside. Only, what he thought was a simple push ended up launching the zombie through the air like a damn ragdoll. The creature slammed into the ground, skidding across the floor, and finally crashed through a glass window, landing a good 15 feet away. Both Yihwan and the girl stood frozen. She was wide-eyed, staring at him like he just turned into a superhero, while he stared at his own hands, confused as hell. He swore he pushed with all his strength, but he never imagined he could do that. That's when another strange detail hit him. Ever since this nightmare began, not a single zombie had actually attacked him. They came after others, sure, but never him. The girl, still processing everything, asked him about his strength. But then she slipped in a word that made Yihwan twitch, a juicy. That was a term people used for middle-aged men in Korea. Yihwan nearly choked. Middle-aged? He was only 28, for crying out loud. Trying to shake it off, he remembered why he opened the door in the first place. Right, the power bank. He made his way to the general goods section and grabbed one. After finally getting his phone charged, he tried calling his sister, Nuna. No answer. That silence hit him like a punch to the gut. Terror crept in. Was he already too late? He didn't want to think about it, but he couldn't help imagining the worst. Minhee, Nuna, their faces flashed in his mind, and for a brief moment, his eyes welled up. But then he shook it off. No, he couldn't assume anything yet. Maybe her phone died. Maybe she was hiding, just waiting for help. That hope was all he had, and he clung to it. Before heading out, though, there was still the matter of the girl in the store. He asked if she had a phone. She did, but it was dead. Without hesitation, Yihwan handed her a power bank and told her to call her parents. A little while later, she managed to get through. Tears streamed down her face as she spoke with her mother, assuring her that she was safe, alive, and not alone. Her mom, overwhelmed with relief, cried on the other end. And of course, the girl made sure to mention the Ajusi who saved her. Yihwan sighed. There was again that cursed word. Ajusi. He helped save her life, and now he was being branded a creepy old dude in return. Life in the apocalypse just wasn't fair. Out of nowhere, the girl's phone buzzed, and her mother's voice came through, shaky, desperate. But instead of comfort, the words that followed shattered her completely. Her mother told her not to come back home, warned her to stay away, and then the call ended. Just like that. No goodbye. No explanation. The girl broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. Her tears flowed like they'd never stop. Confused, heartbroken, and utterly lost. Seeing her like that, so helpless and completely broken, Yihwan couldn't just stand there. He knelt beside her, offering a quiet solution. He told her she could come with him, that he'd help her get home safely. But just as things seemed to settle for a moment, a loud commotion outside snapped their attention back to reality. Through the gaps in the shelves, they saw it. More zombies piling into the store like moths to a flame. The girl's fears spiked instantly. She shrank back, realizing that escape was looking more impossible by the second. Yihwan knew it too. They weren't getting out of here unless he cleared the path. Calmly, he started rummaging through the store, piecing together a makeshift weapon, something that could get the job done, even temporarily. Before heading out, he turned to the girl, eyes serious. He told her not to open the door, no matter what, and that he'd be back. Then, without giving her a chance to protest, he shut the door and stepped out, her panicked voice trailing behind him. What followed was chaos. Yihwan took on the horde, one swing at a time, clearing out the menace with nothing but sheer grit and a makeshift weapon. And eventually, he came back, standing in front of her, still alive and breathing. He looked like a damn hero. Relief washed over her as she saw him, her expression shifting from fear to amazement. Just to be sure, she asked if he was okay. He told her he was, more than okay. Actually, for the first time, he felt truly confident. Fighting those zombies had lit something in him. And more interestingly, he realized something important. The zombies weren't even trying to bite him. Later, Yihwan wandered into a nearby garment shop, picked out some clean clothes, and changed out of the bloodstained mess. When he stepped outside, luck seemed to throw him a bone. A heavy motorbike sat parked across the road, practically glowing under the light, like it had been waiting just for him. Back in the store, the girl was changing too, wearing the clothes he had picked out for her. He apologized awkwardly, admitting he didn't know a thing about women's fashion and just grabbed whatever looked like it might fit. Since the area looked relatively clear, Yihwan figured they had a bit of time to stock up on food. While moving through the shelves, he spotted a solid-looking baseball bat and claimed it. As they moved together, the girl hesitantly expressed her concern. She couldn't understand why he was risking so much for her. They were total strangers. She assumed, being a Juicy, he must have had a family of his own to protect. Yihwan couldn't help but make a face when she called him a Juicy again. Seriously, did he really look that old? But brushing that off, he reassured her. He told her not to feel guilty. In desperate times, people need help, and maybe someday, he'd be the one needing it. Besides, as long as the zombies weren't interested in biting him, he wasn't exactly putting his life on the line. The moon hung high in the sky, casting a soft, silvery glow over the restless dead wandering below. Zombies shuffled mindlessly through the darkness, bathed in calm moonlight, until that peace was shattered by the roaring vroom of a 700 cubic centimeters engine tearing through the still night. Behind the handlebars was none other than Yihwan, riding his new beast of a bike like he owned the damn apocalypse. The engine echoed through the dead air, loud enough to wake the dead. Literally, but the zombies didn't immediately react. Probably because the one radiating all the life and heat was the girl clinging behind him, not Yihwan himself. With no real obstacles in sight, he gunned it, hoping to reach Nuna as fast as possible and pull her out of whatever hell she was caught in. Elsewhere at a half-wrecked gas station, a man crouched inside a dusty little tuck shop, hiding from the undead outside. Clutching his last bottle of water like it was sacred, he could already feel the doom creeping in. The place was stripped bare, looted down to the nails, and all he could do was curse his pathetic luck for getting stuck here. Then there was the sound of a motorcycle cutting through the silence. He froze. That meant survivors. Hope, maybe, but it was getting louder, closer, too close. The engine finally cut off, stopping right outside the tuck shop. The man peered through the dusty glass and almost lost his mind when he saw the rider just casually park in the middle of a damn zombie zone like it was a Sunday stroll. Either this guy was insane or seriously dangerous. Desperate and a little reckless, the man decided to risk it. He called out, hoping anyone would hear. But before he could even finish the thought, Yihwan was already on the move, smashing through the crowd of zombies like he was swatting flies. One hit per monster. Clean, efficient, brutal. From his hiding spot, the man watched in stunned disbelief. Then, just as one zombie crept up behind Yihwan, he shouted a warning. But Yihwan didn't even flinch. He casually took 2 steps back, and the zombie went flying past like he was a damn ghost. The man's jaw practically hit the floor. Meanwhile, another zombie lunged toward the girl on the bike. Without missing a beat, Yihwan swung his bat with such force. The creature flew through the air like a rag doll tossed in the wind. With the immediate threat gone, he turned to the girl and told her to relax. Everything was under control. Back in the tuck shop, the man was still frozen, trying to process what the hell he just witnessed. If his eyes weren't playing tricks on him, those zombies hadn't even tried to bite Yihwan. Not once. It was like they couldn't. As Yihwan strolled over to the fuel dispenser to top off the bike, the man finally stepped out from hiding. Excitement surged in his chest. He was certain of it now. The guy standing in front of him wasn't just anyone. He was the exclusive scoop. The man drank water like it was the best thing he'd ever tasted, like he hadn't had anything remotely decent in days. After emptying the bottle in one go, he let out a satisfied breath and admitted he was just glad to finally quench his thirst. Watching him curiously, Yihwan asked how long he'd been hiding. Surprisingly, it had only been 3 days. Still, the guy hadn't expected the convenience store to be completely ransacked. No food, no supplies, just dust and disappointment. But now that he'd met other survivors, he looked a little hopeful. Trying to ease the tension, he introduced himself as Kim Gidu, a 32-year-old journalist who, quite frankly, didn't give a damn about journalism anymore. The world had gone straight to hell, and chasing stories didn't mean much when half the population wanted to eat your face. The girl's name was Park Gina, a 20-year-old college freshman who definitely hadn't signed up for this. And then there was Yihwan, 28 years old, and reluctantly admitting that he used to be a mortician. Gidu couldn't help but raise a brow, saying he didn't look like one. Meanwhile, for some reason, Gina kept staring at him, which made Yihwan visibly uncomfortable. Turns out, she was just surprised. She'd half expected him to be some old boomer uncle, not someone relatively normal-looking. Gidu eventually pieced together how these two ended up teaming up. It was just dumb luck, really, a series of messed up events that brought them together at that rundown store. Yihwan even pointed out how weird it was that they hadn't exchanged names until now. Gidu got it, though. Anyone who'd been trapped out here probably went through their own personal horror show, something he promised to talk more about later. But for now, there's something else bugging him. He cut to the chase and asked Yihwan about the strange ability he seemed to have, the one that made him immune or invisible to zombies. Outside, the moans and growls of the undead echoed through the ruined streets. But inside, their conversation pressed on. Yihwan shared how he'd been knocked out cold for 5 days inside a morgue. When he finally woke up, the apocalypse had already taken over. All he remembered before blacking out was feeling sick, then nothing. Gidu scribbled all this down like a proper journalist, confirming Yihwan's story, especially the part where he escaped the hospital and ran into Gina soon after. Gina, meanwhile, had been searching for her family when everything went to hell. Neither of them really knew what had happened during those first few days, which Gidu honestly thought was probably a blessing. But then came the real kicker. Gidu explained what he knew, how the entire planet had basically been turned into a zombie wasteland in just a few days. The first 48 hours were absolute chaos. People turned into monsters before they even understood what was happening. Families tore each other apart. Literally. The scariest part? The infected didn't come from strangers. They came from the people you loved. Gina listened in silence, her eyes welling with tears as Gidu painted the picture. It was brutal. Too brutal. He quickly apologized for being so graphic, trying to reassure her that her family might still be alive. After all, she had received that one call, that one thread of hope. He told her they'd meet again. Gina agreed, but her voice wavered with doubt. Deciding to cut into the conversation, Yihwan got curious about the journalist's story. Turns out, even Gidu wasn't clinging too hard to his job title these days. Being a journalist didn't mean much in a world crawling with the undead. He admitted he'd been chasing a lead, trying to uncover the cause of the apocalypse, but taking that risk got him stranded. He ran out of gas and ended up stuck in this hellhole. Yihwan, always hungry for answers, leaned in and asked what he'd found out. But the journalist waved it off like it wasn't important. Before he could explain further, something way more pressing stole everyone's attention. He turned to his left and immediately froze. A group of zombies had slammed into the window, snarling and thrashing against the glass like rabid animals. The entire group tensed. They couldn't even leave the gas station without becoming zombie chow. Yihwan didn't need much convincing. He figured they needed to quit stalling and just get the fuck out. Since the bike was out of question, he asked Gidu where his car was. It was parked just a few minutes away by the roadside. Only problem? Getting to it meant cutting through a horde of creepy, flesh-hungry, fucked up bastards. With nothing but a club in hand, Yihwan decided he'd play the hero. He told them to block the door while he cleared the path. It sounded like straight-up suicide to the journalist. After all, the guy was about to throw himself into a zombie crowd for their sake. But Yihwan was oddly calm. He reminded them that zombies didn't seem interested in biting him anyway. Turning to Gina, he gave her a soft smile, promising once again to take her home, just like he said he would. And before stepping out, Gina finally gathered the courage to tell him he didn't need to be so formal. He could just call her by her name. Their age gap wasn't that big. That made our guy smile even wider. He said her name for the first time, then turned to face the nightmare waiting outside. Meanwhile, Gidu just stood there, awkward as ever, playing third wheel in what felt like a tragic love story set in a zombie flick. Anyway, the undead freaks outside definitely didn't expect this. One guy stepping out like a total badass, eyes burning with purpose. Yihwan declared that not a single one of them would make it inside. And then, all hell broke loose. The zombies shrieked and lunged, but Yihwan was already in motion. He slammed into them like a wrecking ball, clubs swinging with brutal precision. At one point, he turned to a zombie that happened to walk by and, for reasons known only to him, absolutely smashed the poor bastard into a wall like he had a personal vendetta. That's when he noticed something strange. It wasn't just that they weren't biting him. It was like they didn't even recognize he was there. Like he didn't exist to them at all. But figuring that out could wait. Right now, Yihwan had one job: stand his ground and make damn sure none of those monsters got inside.